What characteristics does a food have that helps you lose fat? Fundamentally, three factors make it a satiating food. It's protein content, nutritional density, and fiber content. Second, it is a food with a medium or low energy density. That is, it does not provide many calories, but it can provide many nutrients. And third, it does not generate large peaks of glycemia and insulinemia. That is, it does not raise either sugar or insulin in your blood much. So, Borja, are there foods that by themselves directly prevent or facilitate you gaining fat? Well, no food by itself makes you lose or gain fat, but it can facilitate caloric deficit. Similarly, no food in isolation is going to make you gain fat. It's your overall dietary pattern that will make you gain or lose fat. That being said, it's important to note because food choice is key. Why do I say this? There are foods that due to their particular characteristics can make it easier for you to gain fat, especially in a context of insufficient physical activity like the one most of the population is currently in. And therefore, when we colloquially talk about perfect foods for losing fat or foods that prevent you from gaining fat, we are referring to foods that, if included frequently, either facilitate or hinder fat loss. Let's look at therefore now 5 foods that make it difficult for most people to lose fat. White bread provides roughly 250 calories per 3.5 ounces. Eating 3.5 ounces of white bread daily amounts to 1,750 calories per week. This might not seem like much, less than 2,000 calories a week. But we must not overlook that when we eat bread, our intake of other foods is also higher, especially when we use bread in main meals to accompany the main dish, whether it's meat, fish, or any dish that has sauce, if we dip bread in the sauce. Conversely, white bread's main ingredient, refined flour, has been directly linked to increased visceral fat accumulation. Remember that visceral fat is probably the fat that we health professionals like the least. Why? Because it is the one most associated with cardiovascular problems. And finally, since it doesn't contain fiber, white bread is a very unsatisfying food, so we will be hungrier throughout the day, which will translate into more calories ingested from other foods. Scientific evidence supports a fact that seems evident. Eating less white bread and not whole grain bread is associated with less abdominal fat. So if you want to lose abdominal fat, it would be interesting to give up white bread or look for a healthier alternative. Additionally, reducing your overall bread intake will provide other secondary benefits. For example, better distensions and less abdominal bloating. While many associate wheat and wheat flour consumption with digestive issues, it is not always the case. Within this large group of people, up to 10% have non-celiac gluten sensitivity. Their digestive system has a mild inflammatory reaction to gluten, which is not as severe as in celiac disease. Sometimes we experience digestive symptoms after consuming flours without falling into that category. This is often caused by a gut imbalance and excessive bacterial fermentation, producing gas and bloating. White bread is nutritionally poor, providing little protein, fiber, vitamins, and minerals. You swap the calories from white bread for those of other foods like fruit, vegetables, whole grain versions, boiled potato, or even sweet potato. You will be greatly improving the nutritional density of your diet, and this translates into 2 things: less risk of long-term deficiencies and, on the other hand, prevention of various chronic diseases, because many of these micronutrients help you to prevent various chronic diseases. Interestingly, the Yale Food Addiction Questionnaire ranks or classifies white bread along with sodas or French fries as one of the most addictive foods. And you can check this for yourselves with your own experience. If there is white bread on the table, it's very hard to resist eating it. Removing these types of foods from your home and only eating them sporadically and outside of the house will give you more control over food and a more appropriate relationship with it, where you control the food and it doesn't control you. Better glucose control. For those with diabetes or prediabetes, white bread quickly raises blood sugar due to rapid absorption. Why? Well, because it's made with refined flour. This is something we can perfectly check with implantable glucose monitors. White bread for breakfast significantly raises blood sugar levels in diabetics and prediabetics. Poorer glycemic control is linked to higher risk of macrovascular diabetes complications, such as heart attack or peripheral arterial disease, and microvascular complications like diabetic retinopathy, neuropathy, or nephropathy. Conversely, excessive consumption of alcohol, sugar, and refined carbs coupled with a sedentary lifestyle is linked to heightened triglyceride production in the body, resulting in elevated blood test levels. Reduce or eliminate white bread and you'll quickly see a decrease in triglycerides, delighting both you and your doctor. Next on the list, fitness cereals. Through years and years of marketing, the idea has been ingrained in our heads that you absolutely need cereals to start the day and have energy. The message has resonated strongly with children and teenagers in particular. This claim is false and significantly restricts our breakfast options, essentially limiting us to cereals or white bread toast with butter and jam. Most commercial cereals, even those sold as fitness, are generally not recommended and greatly hinder fat loss. For example, if we take this one from a well-known brand, even though it says fitness in large letters so you can see it so it doesn't go unnoticed, and they present honey as a healthy sweetener and also tell you that it contains 65% whole oats. If we analyze it, it has 23 grams of sugars for every 100 grams of product, a fairly high amount of sugar. The main ingredients are sugar, isomaltulose, rice flour, sugar syrup, inverted syrup, dehydrated glucose syrup, and honey, which are all essentially forms of sugar. If you want to choose more recommended cereals, you have to discard those that have more than 5 or 6 grams of added sugar for every 100 grams of product, those that are made from refined wheat flour, and those that add or include vegetable oils or like sunflower, canola, or soy. Whole spelt cereals, oat flakes, muesli, or whole grain granola are usually good choices. Third, ultra-processed protein bars. I'm sure you didn't expect this food on today's list. We need to become aware of whether we really need all these hyper-protein products that are coming onto the market. I've tried fitness protein bars that taste better than the typical sugary, caramel-filled bars we've all tried at some point in our childhood. In essence, it's an ultra-processed, protein-rich product, and the protein-rich claim shouldn't mislead you. If you have an ultra-processed product, no matter how rich in protein it is, you're not turning it into a good product. This concept applies to many aspects of nutrition. Although it can be a one-time resource, and I sometimes carry some when I travel and don't have time to stop and eat, it's not a product to consume frequently, no matter how much protein it contains. There are several reasons. First, as mentioned, it's an ultra-processed product. Most of them greatly abuse sweeteners, which is why they can sometimes upset your digestive system. Then, even though taking a small amount of sweeteners doesn't harm us, the truth is that our society is progressively abusing sweeteners, which are now found everywhere since we've fled from sugar like the plague. Only time and studies will give us a clear picture of the impact of this abuse of sweeteners on our health. For now, I prefer to stay on the side of caution and avoid abusing them. And finally, we must take into account the price of typical protein bars, which are usually high. A bar can cost 2 to 3 euros. Buying the same amount of protein in the form of whey protein is going to be much cheaper and also healthier. Zero or light sodas. Why are zero-calorie sodas keeping you from losing fat? First, they don't wean you off the sweet taste, which is important if you want to lose fat. Second, they are high in inorganic phosphates, dangerous if you have chronic kidney disease, but there are even studies linking them to health problems in healthy people. They include aspartame, sucralose, and many other sweeteners. I'll leave you here a video about the pros and cons of sweeteners. I recommend you watch it because it can give a much more global view on sweeteners and less partial. They remain linked to obesity and metabolic issues. In this study, 2019 participants are prospectively followed forward to see what happens with the incidence of diabetes in those who drink sugary sodas and zero sodas. The conclusion, it may surprise you, switching to zero or light sodas does not decrease the risk of type 2 diabetes and may independently increase it. Another study found an association between consuming light or zero sodas and advanced chronic kidney disease, but did not identify causal mechanisms. Could it be because of the inorganic phosphorus that I mentioned earlier? Could it be because light sodas increase the incidence of obesity? The conclusion is that light or zero sodas are probably a better option than sugary carbonated drinks, but that doesn't make them healthy. Drink them sporadically, and at home for a drink water. And finally, I'm sorry, but beer. Hops is a climbing plant whose flower is used to make beer. The lupulin gives it that bitter beer taste that some people find so attractive. Is beer the devil and always prevents me from losing fat? Beer is not the devil, beer is beer. But it is true that a can of beer has an average of about 150 calories. If we have the habit, and this word is key, if we have the habit of having one daily, we already have an extra 1,050 calories a week compared to drinking water and 4,200 extra calories a month compared to drinking water. This is neither good nor bad, it is what it is. Remember though that every excess of 7,000 calories becomes approximately 1 kilogram of fat. A simplification, and we know that not everything is mathematics and that calories in and calories out is a simplification, and it's not exactly like that, okay? Okay, but beer is one of the elements that generally increases the energy intake of the diet in society. On the other hand, beer consumed in high quantities has phytoestrogenic activity. This is little known, or at least little publicized, due to certain flavonoids. For occasional consumption, this has no repercussions, but heavy beer drinkers could see a certain imbalance between estrogens and androgens due to these substances. And let's not forget that as normalized as beer is, it's an alcoholic beverage. Ethanol in sufficient doses generates hormonal alterations such as an acute decrease in testosterone synthesis, increase in prolactin, decrease in growth hormone, and at the digestive level it increases intestinal permeability and deteriorates the intestinal epithelial barrier. Anyone with non-specific digestive symptoms like abdominal pain, bloating, diarrhea, or heavy digestion should try quitting alcohol for 2 weeks to see if symptoms improve. In a huge percentage of you, really, there tends to be an improvement in digestive symptoms. And Borja, is the problem solved by drinking non-alcoholic beer? Well, we definitely solved the alcohol problem, but at the caloric level there isn't much difference, by slightly below conventional beer. That's all for now. Keep in mind no single food will cause fat gain irrespective of your overall habits. But the foods on today's list are often partial culprits for that increase in body fat percentage, and eliminating them always makes the process easier. Tell me in the comments about your fat loss process and which food elimination has helped you maintain a healthy weight the most. See you very soon. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for being there. A big hug and keep empowering.